basically, because of the times and not knowing, if we're going to have business, if we're not going to have business. Even your interest rates on basic savings accounts, money markets, IRAs, all of your percentages are probably going down. Okay, I just recently got a memo that said rewards checking at American Bank, their percentage went down. But it's because they couldn't keep up that rate, giving away money basically when they're not bringing anything in at this juncture of time. Okay? When you have a checking account, this is probably, as you said, saving for something bigger. Right? This is probably your nest egg in a sense. This isn't your everyday money that you're going to use. Your everyday money would be in your checking account or linked to your debit card, right?
Yes.
Okay, so why would we do this? To keep our money safe, to actually put it somewhere that we think nobody's going to really hack us or get into us. Okay? And then the other thing is, like Justin said, we're hoping that we can make some interest on this. Okay? So what's interest? Is this good interest or bad interest?
Good.
This is good interest, right?
Good.
There's two kinds of interest though, really, right? We could have interest on a loan, and then we would consider that kind of bad interest, right? Because we're going to have to pay that stuff back. But we could have good interest like this, where we're going to get money hopefully every month, week, half a year, whatever they decided to, however they're deciding to pay it. So here's one of the things that you have to make sure of, and this is really important when you start doing these problems, is that you see these kind of words, and any of these words are going to relate to time. So annually is obviously once a year. Okay? Quarterly means that you're going to get it 4 times a year. The quarterly months are January, April, July, and October. So every time those come around, you would get an interest payment. Quarterly, 4 times. Semi-annually, semi meaning 2, is twice a year or every 6 months. And then the last one that might happen is monthly. So monthly you're going to use 12. Okay, so you're going to be able to understand this and take whatever the year or the amount of time it is to calculate your interest payment. When you do your interest payment now, you're going to use a percent that they give. But you have to realize that the interest payment that they give is probably going to be a yearly interest rate every single time. And then if you happen to get it more than just once a year, which most of the time you'll probably get it monthly, okay? Then you'd have to break that percentage down into a monthly increment. That makes sense, what I'm saying there? So, when you do this, remember now, when you're going to use one of these words, you're going to actually take that word and turn it into a number. So quarterly meaning 4, semi-annually 2 or 6 months, and then monthly into 12. You're going to make that into a fraction. All right, so quarterly would be 1/4. I'm going to take that percentage and divide it into fourths. If it's semi-annually, I do that to 1/2. Another huge thing that you have to make sure of in this section is that you do not round until the very, very end. So if you do a percentage, don't round it. If you get a number that has more than cents, so more than 2 decimal places, don't round it until the very, very end of the problem. All right. So how are we going to figure out interest? This is probably a formula that you've seen before. A lot of the times they call this I equals PRT, or PERT. Sometimes there's an actual E in there for an exponential rate. But I equals PRT is going to be a basic interest rate that you're going to always be able to find. Okay? So, what do you think these letters mean? What does I mean? The interest, right? So this is the amount of interest basically earned, right? Again, this is good interest for us. Now you can actually use this formula for bad interest too. So if you had a loan and they were gonna charge you an amount of interest for that loan, you could use this formula also. Any idea what the capital P means?
Price.
Good guess.
Percent.
Good guess. Keep guessing though. This is probably kind of a newer word for you. This is my principal. And I believe it's PLE. So what's the principal? Different principal.
The bottom line. The flat rate. Principal.
The amount in your account.
Yeah, perfect. Your principal is the amount you start with. So right now, let's say grandpa and grandma unfortunately pass away, and they give you some money. They leave you some money. You could take that and make it into one of these accounts, and this would be your principal. What did I start out with? Like Jeff said, okay? Now, realize my principal is always going to change realistically. Because especially if this is my savings account, or sorry, my checking account, if this is my checking account, it's probably going to change every single day, right? If I go to the store and use my debit card, if I get a deposit, if I go to Walmart, if I go to get gas, right? I'm swiping my debit card, it's changing all the time. Well, when you're talking about savings accounts, they're probably not going to change as much. I'm probably not going to mess with this money a whole lot. Right? Unless I get one of those big things, grandpa and grandma pass away, or mom and dad sell a car or something, they give me a portion of that money. I don't know. I get a big chunk of money, then I'm going to stick it into one of these. So my principal is not going to change a whole lot, but it could change a little bit. All right? Little r. Rate. Rate is always a what? Percent. So this is my rate, which is 8%. So again, remember I have to do what? If I'm talking about a percent, I need to move the decimal 2 places where? To the left. So the ones that mess around with people are when they give you a percent that is a decimal. Right? So if I have 5%, obviously I get 0.05. But if I have 2.5%, a lot of people will say, well, it's already a decimal. Well, that doesn't matter. I still got to move it 2 places to the left. So I get 0 or 0.025. So make sure that you move the decimal 2 places to the left. And what's T? Time. And when we talk about time, we're going to always do this in years. So that's why we would end up having a fraction. So if it was quarterly, it would be 4 times a year, right? So we'd use 1/4. If it's semi-annually, we'd use 1/2. If it's monthly, we would use what as my fraction? 1/12. 1/12. Okay? So this is really important concept, though, that we'll use a lot. We'll actually come back to I equals PRT a lot. All right? So we'll stop right there. We'll pick up tomorrow. So remember, tomorrow obviously is